Hello and welcome again to South Beach Sessions, West Coast style, with someone here who I'm a big admirer of. She's a long-form writer, a dinosaur from a different time.
Thank you for starting that way.
That cares about writing and reporting and does it better than just about anybody. Ramona Shelburne, thank you for all of your work. It has been fun to watch your mastery of subject matter and how it is that you get into things. And I am told that I'm going to see a bit of a mirror here, that you and I have a lot of similarities in how it is that we're built. So welcome to South Beach Sessions. And I will say right off the top, I will thank you because this is an extraordinarily difficult time for you. You just lost your father, James. I'm sorry. I'm deeply sorry. And thank you for making the time for us because you're the executive producer of the project of a lifetime on Hulu, Clipped, about the Clippers story that you covered better than anyone, Donald Sterling. So I will just ask you off the top, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's interesting. You and I have both been, we covered athletes, right, where a parent dies or some horrible thing happens to them. And they give an interview where they go, I know my dad would have wanted me to play, or they have some amazing game and they dedicate it to a grandma or a dad or whoever it was. And obviously, my dad passed away on the 29th of May. So it was, I had a couple of days to get through it. And if stuff would have happened, if this would have happened and then the premiere was 2 nights later, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I had, 4 or 5 days to kind of sit Shiva in my own way, see my friends and be around people who love me and comfort me, and I wasn't alone. And I really felt like very quickly and early on, like my dad was like my biggest fan. Like I got to show him the show and he was in the hospital. Like he was sick for 6 months. So this was, it was pancreatic cancer, which is one of those things that you're like, that's a bad one,
It's the most aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and so like I knew this was, I always knew this could happen. I was sort of in that place of not accepting that this was going to happen. We were still fighting, and he had a surgery, and I thought, oh, just get through this, turn a corner, and then, boom, he has a brain bleed and a stroke, and that's it. And it was quick, and so I'm sort of working through all of it, and it's hard, but I also feel like my dad would absolutely want me to go to this premiere. This was like, he was my biggest fan. Like he would literally, if I could ask him, he would say, I would be mad at you if you didn't go. I would be mad at you if you didn't do this. Like, and I think I actually understand that now.
You, like me, uncommonly close to your parents, talk to them every day. The people around me didn't tell me until very late in life that it was strange that how often I was with my parents later in life as an adult. And it seems like you're even closer to your parents. I do not talk to my parents.
I didn't do a TV show with my dad, but
You could have probably, I'm guessing.
He was kind of quiet. Yeah. I don't know. He was, my dad was like he was a teacher. He was like everyone's coach. So like all my friends growing up knew him as Coach Jim, right? And all my mom friends now, they know him because he was at my house all the time. We do play dates and my dad's there. Like I went to the beach with a couple of friends that I like barely knew. We were just getting to know, hey, you want to go to the beach together? Let's take the babies. And like my dad came. That might be weird. I don't know. I mean, I travel around the NBA. Like I went to Miami and my dad, can I come? Okay. Come on, like my dad would just tag along, and I'd get a room with 2 beds in it. And, I'd be like, don't snore. Wait till I fall asleep before you start snoring over there, and he would just go amuse himself and do stuff. Cause he was just like always game. Like he wanted to go do stuff. And I like you, probably, I think I knew that it was strange that I hung out with my dad as much as I did, but I also hang out with my mom a lot too.
I didn't really apologize for it, but like I said,
care.
But I would say though that nobody was telling me it was weird until much later. Like that people weren't honest about that beforehand.
But people love your dad, and I also felt like if you love me, this is where I came from. These are people in my life. Like literally, like my dad, I would call him and be like, "You want to come over? I'm making whatever for dinner. You want to come?" He'd be there in 10 minutes. Like that's why I live all the way out in the San Fernando Valley so that I can be 10 minutes from my parents.
It's also why you never left, right?
Yeah.
You had a chance to go to Harvard, and you did not leave.
No, like I can tell this story. Good job on the research. I like that. No, I was a softball player in high school, and I got recruited by a few places, and like at the end, it was either Harvard or Stanford or Cal, and I sort of had this weird idea that I wanted to be in a city, and I just loved Harvard. It's like I loved being in Boston and being in the old New Englandy town and like doing something totally different. And then I didn't even really like Stanford at first. I was like, oh, it's a big country club and I'm going to be so bored here. Then what do? You ride your bike or something? Like, there's nowhere to go. There's no city around here. I mean, Palo Alto's a little sleepy, it's Silicon Valley, right? And then I just was like, but I don't want to be that far from my folks. Like, I'm really close to my parents. I don't want to come home twice a year. I want them to be able to come up and go to all my games, And then I had even this thought at 17, like, if I go to school at Harvard, I might meet a guy from there and maybe his family will be from over back east and I'll get married or I'll get a job there because it's easier to find a job in Boston or New York if you go to school back there, right? And then my life will be over in the East Coast and I don't want that.
Well, what was the tug? Like, what was it just love? Like, obviously you like spending time with them. In my case, I didn't embrace change. I liked where it is that I was.
Definitely.
I come from exiles though, right? So I'm living in a house that's got a lot of fear in it and all you've got is each other. So I don't know what the roots are of it for you to be that close to your family.
I mean, I was definitely like really close to my mom and dad. It was funny because I always remember freshman year getting dropped off and like they literally drop you off. Like, okay, here's your stuff, here's your dorm. And most of my friends I really didn't have friends yet. I just got dropped off in the dorm at Stanford. And they were all like, yes, our parents are gone. Like, we're going to embrace being a college kid. And I was like crying my eyes out, like it was really, and I remember going home for Thanksgiving, and I literally I had to pull over on the side of the road and throw up on the way home because I was just like, I can't. Now I came back to the womb, and now I'm leaving again, and it was really hard for me to be away from my folks. Why is that? I don't know. I think maybe I was a little in a lot of ways I'm very old soul, mature, but in a lot of other ways I'm not. I'm like immature.
I was going to say it stunted me. I didn't become an adult.
I was a little childlike in that. I was a little immature, like a little afraid to stand on my own 2 feet. My dad was really strong. Like if I got into, I remember I got into a super minor car accident, but I called my dad right away. Like something happened, I called my dad right away. I never rebelled. It's not weird. Like
neither did I. I didn't
need
either.
To rebel.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe my only rebellion was right after Stanford when everybody was like, what are you going to do with your life? Like, aren't you going to get some fancy Stanford job? Or aren't you going to get some? And I was like, I don't freaking know. Wait, can we curse on your podcast?
Yes.
Okay.
That's not rebellion, Ramona.
I know.
That's not rebellion. No, the cursing might be rebellion. Yeah. But what will I do at Stanford with myself is not really rebellion.
Done, and it wasn't like rebel. It was more like I was done. And I did American Studies, and then I did a master's in communication, and I had an internship at Sports Illustrated, but I was sort of like not wanting to jump into the next thing. I'd been a softball player my whole life. I'd been a student my whole life. That was what I did, and I wasn't like excited to go out into the world. I was like, I'm in my nice womb. I'm in my protective womb here, right? Like
it keeps you from growth, though.
Yeah,
I'm speaking from personal experience, because I was stunted, I was coddled, and so I didn't.
Same.
Mid-30s, I'm still not feeling like an adult.
I lived at home after I graduated college. Like I had a job in the Bay Area, and I was going to go do it. And then I kind of wanted to I wanted to do Teach for America. I had this idea that I was going to go move down south someplace and teach for America someplace. And I wanted to have a completely new experience. And I tried on a lot of identities. Like I tried on a lot of things in that 22-year-old way of let me go do cool things. And it always came back to I don't want to be that far from home. And I think my whole adulthood has been, even out of college, I stayed in LA. I had other job offers. I could have gone to Sports Illustrated after college. My boss there, she used to be Sandy Bailey. She's Sandy Rosenbush now. She was like, oh, we'll hire you back after, your internship was over. And after you graduate college, you can come back, or I could go to New York. I had all these friends who went to New York, but I was not in any hurry to go stand on my own 2 feet. So I just worked.
I did too. It's an excellent hiding place.
Yeah, it is.
When you mentioned trying on hats at 22, though, writer was one of them, or by that point you were already doing that?
I was just trying that on. I never thought I would be a sports writer. I wanted to be C.J. Craig from The West Wing. Like I actually did like some training, like campaign training. I went to like random seminars, and I was going to be a speechwriter or some kind of communications person in politics. I used to love politics, right? And I tried that a little bit, but I was like, what am I going to do? Get out the voter registration wherever the hell it is, like I would like, there was like a year or two where I was really trying to do that. And I still have friends from that era when I was like trying to go get out.
So how did it happen thow? Your mother was a writer. You've called your mother your best editor, right?
She is. She's my mom, Jeanette. She wrote her own screenplays, just like a lot of people in LA, right? Like she used to be a teacher at Harvard Westlake here, which is a private high school in LA. But back then it was just Westlake School for Girls. So she had all these like famous kids in her class. Like I think Jamie Lee Curtis was in her class, and the girl from the Bengals, and just a lot of like cool women that she got to know in the back then. And she taught until I was like 3 or 4, and then she just stepped back because she had my brother, and then she was a stay-at-home mom for a little while. And I think very, very typical life path, right? Like women during that era, you have a cool career at a job, and then you have kids, and then you step back, and then you don't work for 10 years, and then when the kids are about 12 or 13, you go find something new. And so screenwriting for her was that something new in that outlet. And she took all these classes, and she actually sold a few things. Like she wrote for children's TV. She did All Dogs Go to Heaven, that show. It was like, individual scripts, right? It wasn't like she was the showrunner or anything. And she did that for a little while, and it was a little Hollywood dream, but I don't think it was just, it's hard to, for a woman in her 40s when you haven't worked for 10 years to like break into Hollywood and do that.
But how did you arrive there then? How are you arriving at writing? Because it happened. Did it happen by accident? Like
No.
you don't know how it is that you got to writing?
Well, I do know. It wasn't like, it just wasn't the plan. Right. And I don't know if I even had a plan.
Well, I don't think that writing, look,
writing's hard, dude.
Well, but it's not just that it's hard. You were you got a great grade point average. You're the president of your valedictorian, your class president. Sports writing is kind of underachieving. I know. There. Like,
everybody goes, wait, you went to Stanford, and what are you doing here? Like, why are you doing this? Like, especially early on. Like, I don't know how you started your career, but I covered preps. Right? Didn't you, your first newspaper job?
Yeah.
And I covered preps at my local paper, the LA Daily News, there's the LA Times and the Daily News out here. And I was covering high school football was like a big thing for me to cover. The other times I was covering cross country and volleyball and track and field and like all these.
But you liked it at this point. At this point, you'd mentioned you were a softball player and a good one. You went to the College World Series, and at this point, are you still missing sports?
Yeah,
you want to be near
definitely.
it.
100%.
You want and the sociology of it is also interesting
100%.
to you.
Yeah, like. I definitely missed being an athlete for a while and being on a team. It wasn't just being an athlete, it was being on a team. So my first year out of college, I lived at home and I was paying off all my student loans. I didn't have that much because I was sort of in various states of scholarship, right? Like there were 2 years I was on no scholarship. There was 1 year I was on half. Then my last year I was on a full scholarship. But then, there were still loans in between there, right? And so I lived at home, and I was giving softball lessons on the side, and I worked for a producer, and I was making PowerPoints for her, and I don't know what the hell we were doing. Like she did, her name was Lori Hall. She used to do those Weather Channel shows and like all these things. And I didn't go right back into writing. I was just kind of just having a job, and I had it was almost like a gap year. Like I kind of I'd been a student and an athlete, and I'd been on so many tracks for so long that I wanted to have a year where I didn't have any responsibilities really. So I had like an easy job, and then I gave lessons to make a little extra money, and then I took an acting class at UCLA. I took a UCLA extension classes. My mom used to teach a screenwriting class at Plummer Park over here in West Hollywood, and I took her screenwriting class. And I took there's a man named Jack Grapes. Look it up. A lot of people go to Jack Grapes in LA. He's like a guru writer type. Mm-hmm. And I was just trying on things. Like I was just doing different things because I had never had the luxury of that. Or maybe I hadn't wanted to. I was too busy playing softball, and I didn't even really date that much in college. Like I didn't have time for that. It was like there'd be boys, and it was like very Stanford-y. Like we'd kind of like there's something there, but like they're too wussy to make the move, and then I have to ask them out, and then that's weird, and then they got a computer science final, and I'm off at a tournament, and it was like whatever.
Well, but you're also a maniacal achiever, are you not? Like
I was, but I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not. I always got A minuses. Like it wasn't about being perfect for me. It's more like I would be pissed if I knew I could. This is going to sound arrogant, and I hope it doesn't come across like that. But like I have a semi-photographic memory, right? And I'm really good, like most writers, at being able to write my way out of anything. So I can sit in class and I listen and I understand what I'm listening to. And then if I was cramming for a test, I could just read the book and just remember it. You know,
what a waste of that power on sports writing, on covering the 34th game of a Clipper season. What you decided to do with it, though, was because you loved it, though, right?
I love it. The truth is, like, I don't really even think of myself that much as a sports writer. I'm just a writer. Like, I like people. I let Zach Lowe do the X's and O's. I let him do this is how they ran the hedge and this ball screen and what kind of defense I understand that stuff. You know, like
that's what I always say to people. I don't write sports. I write about people who play sports.
100%.
And it's just fascinating to me because you could tell all the stories there. All of the stories about the human condition can be told in the playground.
And mostly what we get to do is meet amazing people, like tortured, flawed, ambitious achievers. Like, I mean, and
amazing people who stir your curiosities because you want to find out, how does this exist?
I love listening to you talk about Pat Riley. I love listening to you talk about some of the people you cover. People always ask me about Kobe. Like, it's freaking fascinating. It's like the human condition. And so, and I do have a side of me that's a bit of, I'm a producer type. I connect people. Like, I like doing the podcast. I knew that was a quality that I had. I think it's my team sports background where like, I can get, like, I know that the sound mixer is just as important as the podcast producer and the engineer and the this, and I kind of like that you're part of my team. You know?
Well, what is it about team though? Because you did mention it wasn't even sports; it was team.
I don't want my own show. I'm not a person who's like, I'm a little afraid of the spotlight, even though I'm in it. I don't want to be in it by myself. It's not an ego thing.
And because there's safety in being with the group, and then there's joy in the shared accomplishment. Because you and I were talking before we started here, and we were talking about how hard writing is. But I like that writing's hard. What I don't like about writing is that it's lonely.
Lonely. Do you know the only time I like writing when it's lonely is when I have a good editor? You know, or somebody in it with me. Like I do a lot of. If you go back and check my bylines, a lot of my stories I co-write with people. I like being on the journey together with people. I like it when I text my editor and be like, and like if I had the worst thing you can give me is an editor who does not care or does not hear the music. Like if they're just slamming it out.
Is that why your mother is so good at it for you? Like she
cares. And you know how there's this thing like, and I hate to say it like this, but this is always the right analogy to me is like, do you hear the music? Like, do you hear how this should sound? Like, I write like I talk, but there's a certain rhythm to it and a certain this. And then when somebody puts a word in the wrong place and a comma in the wrong place, and I'm like, no, you don't get it. That's not, no.
No, it's a song, but it's also a sculpture, and so if you care about it. But how does your mother help you with it? Because I can't imagine the idea.
She has no idea about sports. And she doesn't know. She's like, she would go to my games in softball, she'd be like, oh, you hit a lot of good air balls today. I was like, no, it was fly balls.
So she knew nothing.
She doesn't know anything about sports. That's why she's a great editor, because she just knows about the people and the story. You know? And like she also knows how to like when I did this, you know, the podcast on Sterling Affairs or like developing it into the show, like some of the biggest, deepest conversations I would have about why these characters are interesting or with my mom. Like one of them was, you know, I felt like so much of what that story is about, why it always grabbed me and why I wanted to elevate it in whatever ways I could. I'm from LA, right? And this is where people come because they want to be famous or they want to be rich or they want a little spotlight or whatever. But
not just from LA, identify as being from LA. It's part of your personality.
Town,
yeah,
know?
I'm the same way with Miami.
Right? You know, and it's like, but LA is just like, what the hell is LA? I mean, we're here in your studio. Can I say where your studio is? We're on the Sunset Strip, basically. This is a part of LA, but it's a different part of LA than where I live in the Valley. You know, the Valley is like Lake and we have the 818 and we're kind of dippy and whatever. But and then there's Santa Monica.
And this place is wildly different from neighborhood to neighborhood.
And then there's East Hollywood, and then there's K-Town and downtown. And I mean, it's like, if you know Los Angeles, like there's a million, everybody in Los Angeles say, well, where in Los Angeles are you from? And then immediately we go, oh, okay, I got you now. Like when somebody tells me they're from Pasadena, I go, oh, okay. It's a little calculus. They might surprise me, but most likely I'm going to be like, oh, it might be old money. That's sort of sometimes a more conservative area, but not necessarily like, like it's an older part of town, right?
It's going to have some landmarks for you, personality pillars where you're like.
Whereas if somebody goes, "Oh, I grew up in Santa Monica," I'm like, "Oh, okay, I know what you're like." Like you're gonna like your juice cleanses, and you're gonna like go to yoga and get your nails done all the time.
You don't regret never leaving though, right? Because I interned in college. I interned out here in Los Angeles.
I did leave a little. Like I left to New York. I did an internship in New York, like you. It's the summer. And I went to college at Stanford, so that was leaving, but it was an hour away on Southwest or, 5-hour drive. But I don't know, LA is an interesting city. Like every part of it is interesting to me. And so part of the why this was such a great story was like, it's this Hollywood thing. It's not Hollywood. Like, the scene we're literally blocks away from where this scene took place in Pretty Woman.
Well, I should tell the folks that Clipped on Hulu has been a passion project of yours for years, and the podcast that you did exhaustively reported, had your imprint all over it. It's a fascinating story for a lot of different reasons, and we just got through with the premiere. I will tell the people again that it's on Hulu now, but this story appealed to you because it was wildly strange, among other things.
Yes, and also like, I don't know, I think I talked to you when you were doing your radio show in the middle of this. I remember doing a call with you. Was I in San Antonio or Miami? One of those. It was like that series that was 2014. And it was like in the middle of all of it. And I liked the legal part of it. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV like that. I like things that challenge me intellectually. And so I had to understand like, well, how is it that Shelley could sell the team without Donald agreeing to sell the team? And then she had changed the trust to get so that if two independent doctors could get him, said he was mentally incapacitated, she would control the family trust. And then she could, but it didn't just work like that. It was, Shelley sold the team, and then she indemnified the NBA and the new buyer if Donald sued. So in other words, even if Donald won in his lawsuit, Shelley would be basically paying himself out. Whoa. Like, I mean, and I say it really fast now, but it was a hard thing to figure out.
Right, sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
and not the most interesting parts of this story either. I don't know what you think are the most interesting parts of this story.
It depends on what day you ask me. Like, the stuff with the players and Doc and coming back. You'll see it all in the show. But, the show is different because in the podcast, I was very concerned with who Donald was, who he was in Los Angeles, the largest residential landlord in LA. He controlled rent control and redlining, and there's a reason why people live in certain places because of him, right? Different minorities and ethnic groups live in certain parts of town because of Donald Sterling and the way he ran his apartment buildings. And but also, like, he grew up poor in East LA, and his name was Donald Tokowitz. And he went to law school and had to change his name because he couldn't get a job at like a right-shoed law firm after law school, because at that time there was discrimination against Jews, and they didn't, so he became a personal injury attorney. And like that story of like, why didn't you lean into that rags to riches story? Like, why didn't you lean? That was a good story, man.
He seemed kind of insane though. Like he seemed
ashamed of it. He didn't want anyone to ever see that he had been poor. He didn't want anyone to know that story. So rather than be proud of where he came from, there was a shame. And I think a lot of this insecurity is overcompensating for it. And so, like, this is what I would talk to my mom about. We didn't talk about, like all the basketball stuff. I mean, some of it, but mostly it was the characters. Like, how is it that Shelley stays married to him for 60 years when she knows he has other affairs and he behaves like this? She's a nice woman. Like, she's not, I mean, she's complicit in a lot of things because she's sort of, what's that knowingly complicit thing, right? You know what somebody is and who they are, but you look the other way because it's convenient for you.
Yeah.
And my mom said something, so I love this part. She goes, well, first of all, you never know what's inside somebody else's marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You never know what started their love or their whatever. But also, there's this feeling of when you make these choices in life, like you do one thing that feels morally compromised a little bit, like doesn't quite feel right, and then you do another, and you do another, and you do another, and then you're like 180 degrees from where you started, and you're like, how the hell did I get here? And I feel like that's a lot of where most of the characters in the show and this story are, but particularly Shelley, you know?
This isn't even, this wasn't the first ownership marriage type of thing that you've done, because you were heavily involved in the Dodger McCourts getting divorced, which also was a big, giant mess. And if I don't have this wrong, they also sold way too early because the Dodgers are now a monster machine, and their marriage coming apart was the reason that they had to sell the
most
team.
Most ownership groups, when they sell it, like the Lakers were sold because Jack Kent Cooke got divorced. You know what I mean? Like that's why he sold it to Jerry Buss. So there's a lot of ownership sales are because the wife and the husband did get divorced, and then rather than the husband pay out the wife for the value of the team, they just sell the team because the team's too valuable or whatever it is.
But these are corridors of power that reporters aren't allowed in. Why and how were you able to get the relationships?
I'm short and people don't see me coming.
Tell this.
I think one of my gifts as a reporter and writer is that I really can talk to anybody. Like I like talking to people. So I like talking to the mom of some high school football player. And I like talking to Joe Lacob, and I like talking to Magic, or I like talking to, I like talking to the PR guy. I like talking to the assistant coach. I was interested in the corridors of power. Like that's the part that
they usually don't trust reporters, though. Like you got, I don't know which parts of this story you want to tell, but you got in with everybody on this Clippers story, and those were a lot of people who were sort of damaged by what came with the press. A lot of
people didn't want to talk about it, or they couldn't. They had signed non-disclosures. But a lot of people, I think everybody on some level wants to be heard, don't you?
Yeah.
And I don't know if
people
they
do
want
like to talk about themselves. I've found that that's an excellent way for me to avoid intimacy, to just keep asking
100%.
somebody else questions.
Of course. Well, I also felt like as a writer, okay, we're going to go there, huh? I feel like if I don't connect with that person, and it's on some personal, if I don't connect, then it's like I'm not into the story. I can do it. I can close my eyes and type it out and make it good. But I need to feel it. I need to get into the guts of it. I've got to find some time in my life. It's almost like method acting or something, right? And I feel like I've gotten to a stage in my life as a writer where I can totally write a story that I don't feel passionately or it's not in my guts or whatever. It's but I also need, but the ones that do get there, those are the ones I really dive into. And so, I mean, it's, I was going to do my bad sex analogy, but it's okay. If you want me to do it, I'll do it.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure whether I want you to do it or not, but now we're here. So what are we going to do with it?
Look, I mean, it's sex is still sex, right? So bad sex is still bad, still okay.
That's all right.
So it's you can do a story and it can still be good.
You could have gone pizza there. You didn't have to go sex. I feel like bad sex is worse than bad pizza. I think I have that right.
No, pizza.
Are you more interested? What calls you more inside of a story? If you had to choose, that you feel like you need it to be an authentic connection there, or that you're just naturally an empath, and so.
I think I'm naturally an empath. And I think what you said, too, about it's a way to avoid your own stuff, too, is to deal with other people's problems, right? Or other people's issues. But so one of my formative editors, we all have these formative editors, right? These people who really inspire us and get us and push us. And one of my formative editors was a guy named Eric Neal. I don't know if you know him. He was page 2 columnist at ESPN for a long time. Then he transitioned. He's the guy who hired me to ESPN. And he had this line, and I just think about it all the time. He goes, most of us write the same story all the time. We write about the same thing. So Wright Thompson, who I think you're friends with and have had on the pod, writes a lot about...
It's always a father. There's always a father involved.
Always. Why?
I mean, I'm guessing because he's exploring his own stuff with his own father.
Yeah. Okay. And a lot of my early work, a lot of my early stories was about greatness, as people who are trying to be great. And I I can do the psychoanalysis pretty quickly, is that I'm trying to be great, and I want to write about other people trying to be great because I am afraid to be my own great. I'm afraid to, for whatever reason, there are things that are holding me back or things I'm afraid of about it. And so I just want to write about other people's. But like most of my early stories have been about that. And then I think I got to a place, and I don't know if it was when I had kids, where I stopped. I still write about that, but that's not what more of my stories are about now. Like that's not what I'm drawn to as much anymore. I'm into it. I'm into the climb. I'm into the trying to climb the mountain or trying to stay on the mountain or whatever it is. But I haven't found what my next stories are usually about.
So the kids changed your entire perspective.
100%.
It just made all of that seem small comparatively, right?
Yeah.
Like the pursuit of competition. I've found later in life that I don't have much use for competition, that it doesn't feel very healthy. But I don't have kids. I would imagine if you have kids, you're like, why am I pouring myself into having to be competitive about things when I should just turn my life into it can be smaller than that.
Yeah, and it's not even just, it's like, I think it's just an evolution. It's not like, I pinpoint it and I seem to tie it towards when I had kids, which was 5 years ago or whatever. But I could also tie it to 2020, I had herniated disc in my back. It was like 9 months of like horrible, excruciating pain, trying to do the shots and do all the things you do, PT and stuff. But like to the point where like I couldn't even function. I had to my dad drove me to the studio every time. Like I'd lean the chair back and I couldn't sit up. I did every hit standing for like 9 months. I'd be like, because when you have sciatica, you have a herniated disc, you can't do it. And it was just really, truly humbling. Like I can't pick my kid up. I can't do anything. I'm this strong physical person. Like I'm an athlete. And then all of that's taken away from me. And I think it's also maybe I kind of had this belief in my own physical abilities. Like I can stay up all night. I could always pull that shit off, right? Like that was like my self-concept, is that I'm the one who can pull stuff off. Willfulness. Like I had this, that's why Kobe and I were close. Like we used to talk about, he loved doing the hard way. He loved he taught himself to play piano by listening to Moonlight Sonata and listening by ear and learning how to play it with his finger. I'm like, why not hire a piano teacher, dude? That would be way easier. And he's like, but it's the struggle where there's beauty. And I'm like, he
felt understood by you though, right? You were meeting him in a deeper place, talking about he probably was super interested in how curious you were about how demonically possessed he was about being great.
Yeah. And I don't think I was still, even in those moments, I was still more balanced than Kobe was. Like I have this, most really great athletes that are probably a bit unbalanced, right? Like you have to be.
I think most successful people tend to be unbalanced because to get ahead, it's almost to the lopsided detriment of other things in your personality. Totally. And especially in that case where he's fighting the world and the inner cities for money on cultural approval, the people he's fighting against, to be hungrier than all of them is nuts.
And to sort of never stop. Literally, there comes a point where you and I turn off the Twitter machine, right? We're like, yeah, screw that. Enough. I said what I have to. And I actually find myself doing less with social media as time goes on, because I feel like this is not the medium I'm going to be understood. And this is not who I want to be shouting at, or the crowd I want to be shouting at. And the people that know me over 10 years of listening to me on the radio or a podcast or reading my work. And so I'm not going to let one tweet or one stupid thing be the way somebody gets to know me, whatever. And I think that's how Kobe was too, is it's about the body of work. It's about the body, your whole career and who you are and how you affected people. So, I think that's why he was so celebrated at the end, is that he let himself be understood. He found translators. I guess I was one of them.
He was looking for them at the end. I remember after he went through his turmoil, he went city to city looking for the columnists. I'm one of the ones who got a call. Hey, do you want to talk to Kobe Bryant here? He'd like to reveal portions of himself to the public.
He wanted to be understood more, because he knew he was people were incapable of fundamentally understanding him, but he wanted at least to try, because I think he had made a lot of, what he literally trademarked slogans like this. Friends hang sometimes, banners hang forever. Literally trademarked that slogan, right? And he kind of delighted in the idea. I don't have any friends. I don't have time for them. Like Gotham Chopra, who did his documentary Muse, right? Gotham met him the first time. And he's always told me, he goes, yeah, we went out, we had a nice time. And then he goes, oh, it's my birthday today. And he's like, really? You didn't have to do this meeting today, man. Don't you have someone you want to go out with? And he's like, no, I'm good. Like, in other words, he didn't have a good friend to go out with on his birthday. He was just taking a business meeting. And like, we all do that sometimes in our work, right? Like, we get lost in covering games and, the life of it all. And then when you have children, like, you realize like there is an actual separation between your life and your work. Like, I think I had been very stunted with, in my friendships and my personal relationships. Like, I had a husband, but we, ships in the night, right? Like, we see each other, we go out for a date here and there, we hang out and watch some shows, but like, I'm traveling and he's home and whatever. And then you have kids and it just grounds you. And but you kind of want to be grounded and you kind of don't. And you kind of, I talked a lot about this with Rachel Nichols all the time, because she was, she had gone through that maybe 5 years before. And she said, having kids is very clarifying, and you have to just have no time or patience for anybody's bullshit. Like, you really only prioritize what you have to get done and what you do. And I used to think as a writer, like, when you say it's very lonely, it is 100%, like looking at the blank page. Oh,
well, and chipping at the sculpture, just spending so much time on every word. But let's go back for a second to something you said. You were afraid of greatness? You write about greatness in others because you're afraid of it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that sometimes with, even with like when I got married, I was a little afraid of all the attention. Like, when people would, how some women love to wear the gown and walk down the aisle and all that. And I was so self-conscious. And like, even when I first got to ESPN, I was a little self-conscious being on TV.
Your wedding day is not a joyous one because you're self-conscious? Like, I'm saying, you're not allowing just the love of it to sweep over you?
I eventually did. I eventually got there, but it was hard because it felt self-important or something. Like, it made me I don't know. And then...
Not part of a team. Well, you are. It's a team of two, but...
Yeah, but you're really out on an island there when you're walking down that aisle anyway. It's like... But I think also, like, I like being on an ensemble show. I like being on a show with 3 other people on the desk for me. Like, I don't mind when the Sports Center anchor goes to me and I give the report, but I'm also throwing it right back to you. Like, I never wanted to be like, let's have the... Do you know, when I did the Sterling Affairs, the hardest line for me to say was, the beginning? Hi, I'm Ramona Shelburne.
Really?
I had my editor. She was I love my editor, Raina Kelly. I don't know if you remember her. She used to run the Undefeated. She was my editor when I was writing about Ronda Rousey. I needed a female editor. I was like, Raina, I need you. And she's like, I don't know anything about this MMA stuff, but I'm like, don't worry about it. This is a feminine hero. This is not about MMA, and she was my editor on all those stories. And then we got to be really good friends. And when I was doing Sterling, she was a trained actress. And she'd been a playwright, and she really knew how to deliver the line, right? And so radio is fun because you hear your voice and you play with your voice and you have fun, and podcasting, same thing. But that one moment where I have to go like, hi, this is the Sterling Affairs and I'm Ramona Shelburne. And I was like, I couldn't say it. And I was like, Raina, will you just say that for me? Will you just say it so I can mimic you saying I? And so she would get there and she'd go, I'm Ramona Shelburne. I'm Ramona Shelburne. And I was like, okay, do it again. Let me do it just like that. And I had to hear her say it so that I could say it. And then she's like, and then my other producer, Julia Henderson, she goes, listen, I know that you're feeling self-conscious saying this, but this is your podcast. This is your idea, and you've spent a tremendous amount of time working on it and developing it. And I know you like to be part of this team of people doing it, but this is your podcast, and say, this is what I made and this is what I did.
Can you explore what this is for me? Like, explore for me the roots of why it is.
I'm turning it around because you have the same shit, right?
Well, I don't.
That's why you're interested.
I'm not. Well, I'm not always hiding though. Like I don't. I do a lot of ensemble stuff because writing is so lonely, because I like the communal.
Does that say LeBatard and Friends?
That's right.
Yeah.
LeBatard and Friends.
Okay.
But it does say LeBatard up there, and it is LeBatard.
Okay, but
it is first because writing is lonely. I wanted something that was communal, laughter, and shared. But I'm not taking an ancillary role. I tend to be leading. I tend to be. I'm not.
Yeah. So you've gotten yourself there, but were you always there?
I learned in my 30s what I wanted more because some of the work wasn't making me happy enough. It was fulfilling when I finished it, but the loneliness, the mountaintop view is better shared than it is by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Can I explore what that is? Well, I think I've gotten better at it. I've learned how to take a compliment now. I've learned how to say my name. Right? I have learned, like, I can do it now.
I can't tell though if being a part of a team is for you confidence or lack of confidence, like knowing what you want or wanting to hide in the group because it takes some of the pressure off of you.
I don't think it's wanting to hide in the group. I think I just, I don't. Like, I do take myself, I've learned to take myself seriously. So maybe I think I'm actually at an evolution point. So it's a little harder for me to explore what I was like 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever it is. But it's hard for me to say, like, I want this for myself. Like, you know, there's certain people who are, you know, in the business, we call them thirsty. Okay. Mm-hmm. You know, you're like, oh, that one's thirsty. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you can see them on the gram and they're posting pictures and they like the attention and all that stuff. And I'll post a little bit, but like I never had that. Like, I want to be great. Like, I want everyone to recognize the body of work and who I am, but I want it to speak for itself. I liked seeing my name in lights a little bit. You know, I liked it when it was on, like, there's a seat reserved for Ramona Shelburne at the premiere. It says R. Shelburne. There was like, look, I got my own visor. It says Shelburne.
Your Vistaviano visor.
Yeah,
you brought
right?
it with
like,
you.
I mean, this is my greatest thing ever, right? Like, okay. But like I'm kind of getting more comfortable with it. But like there's another side, like, and we're gonna get it. This feels like a body image thing too, but it's something I've been working on myself too. Of like, don't hide in your fat suit, you know, like don't like. I was always an athlete, I was always a jock, but I was never like out there, you know, like I wasn't getting my hair done and my makeup done and dressing all cute. I just looked good because I was in shape and all that. And then in your 20s and 30s, mostly my 30s, because I was just working a lot. You just work a lot. You just like, there's 5 pounds and 10 pounds and 20 pounds and whatever. And then you look up and you're like, whoa, what have I done to my body? And
the sports writer lifestyle is brutal.
The worst.
Brutal.
The worst. Like
deadlines, writing at midnight.
Eat something afterwards, you know, after the game. Oh, let's go out to some restaurant at 12:45 at night and eat another dinner. Like, you know, it's like, oh, am I having second dinner or third dinner? What are we doing, you know? And then, you know, you could get up and work out or you could do that. But like my body literally broke on me. Like my back broke, right? And I was like, I want to be strong. Like I have always been strong. I am not a weak person. And it bothered me that my body broke. And so you kind of have to get knocked all the way down so that you can have the strength to get all the way back up. And so like I'm religious about working out now. I'm never going to have that happen in my back again. And some of it's out of my control, but I'll do whatever I can to not let it happen. I'm way more balanced about sleep and taking care of myself. And sometimes that means like, you know, I'm not going to go to that game tonight, even though I want to. Like, I'll just see them when they're in shoot around. After I do the show this morning, I'm going to do the show, see if I can catch somebody at the hotel after shoot around, you know, see the people I need to see. And then I'm going to go home and have a normal night at home and watch it on TV. Like, these are big things in your evolution as a person doing this job.
I'm not getting what you were afraid of in greatness. Like, why would greatness scare? Why would you pursue greatness so willfully and then be afraid of it?
You know, maybe it leaves you exposed. Maybe it's lonely. All that attention is just all on you. Maybe it's even the way people would think about me. Like you've seen all this in our business. There's like the new it girl or the new it guy, the new hot talent, whatever. And there's this sort of rise and fall fame cycle. And I think I'm always just like, I just want to have the same job for a long time, as opposed to, you know.
It's safer.
Yeah, it's safer. I think I don't like, it's not even the pressure. It's not the pressure that bothers me. I'm not afraid of pressure. I'm an athlete. Pressure is a privilege. Like that means that you're doing important things. I prefer that. It's not pressure, so that's not it. It's, I think maybe what you said, the view from the mountaintop is better with others. Maybe I just don't think of myself with that sort of self-importance or want things on my own. Like, I never understood why somebody would be a tennis player.
Oh, it's so lonely.
Right?
A swimmer.
Like when you win, like who do you, like your coach? You know, like, I don't know, like, who's celebrating with you? Like, I don't know. It just felt like that's just more my vibe, you know? And like, why do people become producers instead of on-camera talent? I don't know. I've always been kind of caught in the middle there. And like, so I happen to be a great writer. I happen to be pretty good on TV or pretty good on radio. I happen to make a great podcast. Like, I do all that. I don't mind leaning in a little. I've learned how to lean in.
Oh, but these things are different, right?
Yeah.
Because I have had I have a conversation with a friend of mine who's at the top of industry that I've known for a really long time. And what I've said to him about my insecurities and the name and lights thing that you got at the Clipped premiere is I'd be totally good with the limousine pulling up on the red carpet and my work getting out and walking on the red carpet. Me, not so much.
Yeah, see, I did that. I walked on the red carpet, and there's a video of me, and they were like, Ramona, and they're like, over here to your left, give us a thumbs up. And I was like, wow, this is good. And I think I just kind of had fun with it. I wasn't like, oh, this is my crowning glory. I was like, oh, this is kind of fun.
It is fun.
It was fun, you know? But it wasn't like, and I was not as uncomfortable as I used to be. You know what I mean?
The writer also usually doesn't want to be the story. We've been taught to not be this aggressively. Don't be the center of attention.
But the reason why we're good writers is that we do share ourselves. You shared yourself in your writing. I read your stuff. You know, like people who read me. Like, I may not go into the first person, but I share myself.
Yeah, you're revealing who you are.
Yeah, and definitely on the radio, I'm always oversharing.
Can you tell me about how Kobe's death impacted you as someone? To see youth extinguished like that seemed forever bulletproof.
Okay, so I'm gonna go maybe start at the beginning rather than the end. But as a reporter, like, my first 7 to 8 years in the business, I wasn't anything special. I was covering preps. I occasionally get hey, you want to go fill in for Howard Beck on an off day, you know, covering the Lakers, right? I would cover the practice, but it took me quite a long time to make it. Like, I was, you know, I was almost to the point where I was going to get out of the business because I was like, oh, as you say, I went to Stanford. I should be doing something with my life, and you know, making $40,000 a year at the Daily News was like, you know, there's a shelf life to that, right? And it was like kind of towards the end of that time when I was at the Daily News where I was actually actively looking for a pivot, for a transition. I was approaching 30. I was like needing to, I'm either going to make it or I'm not. And nobody believed, like, I had a couple editors who like believed in me and thought I was great. You know, like there was a guy named Matt McHale. He was great baseball. He was like, oh, you're a good writer. You know, I was, oh, thanks. I think I knew, but I didn't know, you know, and I wasn't being seen that way by most of the people.
I needed people to tell me.
I needed people to tell me.
But they were telling me in high school, or they were telling me in college. I would have never pursued this. It was like the only thing that people were telling me I was good at.
People used to tell me I was smart. And they would tell me I was good at writing, but I didn't, as in terms of a sports writer, like none of the people I always felt almost like inferior because most people had different backgrounds and I write differently than most sports writers, right? I'll take a long time to get to the point, or I'll do big scene, or I'll do that, you know. And there was another guy, Gene Warnick, like I remember I wrote a column, he goes, I just love how you turn that phrase. I just love that. And I was like, really? Thanks, man. Like, and I was so.
But you're invisible, willful college athlete for somebody who
think about that. Most of your 20s were just supposed to be like your peak awesome years.
But you're great at everything. You're conquering school easily, and now for 7 or 8 years, you're writing pretty meaningless things.
Yes.
You're kind of invisible.
I'm at my old high school covering my old softball team, and people were like, "Didn't you go to Stanford?"
And I'm you're the backup reporter on the Lakers, and Kobe.
Yeah, and I'm in Memphis, and I remember being in, was it Memphis? I think it was Memphis or Orlando, something like that. We went on this trip right before Christmas. And I was filling in because it was the Christmas trip. It was the trip right before Christmas. And the reporter was like, you know, our normal guy, Elliot Tieford, he goes, you know, can you do that trip for me? Do you mind? You know, like I want to take some time at home. You know, it's family time, right? And I go, oh, it was the greatest thing ever. Like, you know, I'd never been given anything. I'd been 8 years of feeling like I sucked and like I'm going to get to cover a road trip. Oh, my God. Yes. Okay. So it was Miami and Orlando and Memphis and New Orleans or something. And like one of those cities, I want to say it was Memphis. Kobe like I walk into the room, and this is like Phil Jackson, Kobe, those teams, okay? 2009 maybe, and 8, 9, something like that. He goes to he kind of like taps me on the shoulder, and I was talking to somebody else over there, and he goes, "Hey, do you need me? I'm about to go." And the fact that like he knew me, like I was like, oh yeah, thanks. And I like stopped whoever else I was talking to, and I talked to Kobe. Like he knew that, like he recognized that I'm not your usual beat reporter. Like the usual guy is not here. He recognized that it would be a big deal if he left without me getting him for the story, and like that he actually knew me enough and gave a shit. And I was like, oh, okay.
Well, and somebody helping you, because I would imagine.
Oh yeah, I was chasing my tail. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Where do I go? Like, I've never been on the road before. Trying not to screw up the whole time.
And I'm not sure how welcoming the entire environment was to you in general, a woman among men. You don't do a lot of complaining about this, but I don't imagine that this was a very warm environment for you where a lot of people were being helpful.
I will, I think there's a lot of war stories about, what it's like for a woman in the industry. I prefer to always say like, I remember the guys who were nice to me. I remember the ones who were not nice to me, but like Brad Turner from the LA Times, great, like he was nice to me. Like he made me feel like, hey, it's your first road trip, huh? Like he was, let me know where you need to go. Like, cause it's real. Like, you talk about being lonely. Like,
oh my God.
Woman on the road with a bunch of dudes. Like you're eating by yourself every time. And
I don't know if you think of yourself as a pioneer, but you and Rachel were coming through a time that wasn't actually that evolved.
No.
Like there were women who came before you, but, and again, you don't complain about this stuff, but because I don't think you're anybody's victim.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine that it was very pleasant. No. And here you have Kobe Bryant helping you.
And it was just like this little moment of kindness that I was like, whoa. And like, it's also Kobe. Right. Like, wow, like he give a shit, And so like that's kind of where it started. But then our relationship grew over the course of the next couple of years because I did a lot of writing. I think he read everything. I think he...
Well, no, but the Muse, when you talk about Muse and what he did with Showtime, he was clearly seeking the smarter people who were trying to understand him, who were relentlessly curious and can tell his story better than perhaps he could. 100%. He was looking for it.
Yeah, that's what artists do. We look for other artists, right? And so he was he was a... he was a lonely guy too. He didn't have too many friends on the team, and so
greatness is lonely. By the way, I don't know if that's one of the you mentioned that's one of the reasons.
I have theories, but maybe that's why I just always write about it. I don't, But anyway, our relationship grew, especially when I got to ESPN because I knew he had been reading the stuff I wrote at the Daily News because he would say things that let me know that he read it. But when I got to ESPN. I'd be on the radio and like he would send me a text. He'd be like, tell Dwight that like whatever it was, like, and it wasn't like tell Dwight, it was like Dwight needs to know that and I was like, whoa, Kobe's freaking listening in the car right now. And you get that from hosting radio. But also I knew he, like when I would talk to him, like, we all do the thing where, hey, can I pull you aside for a second so I don't have to ask it around everybody else? And he would always like talk to me off to the side. He would always like, because he knew like I knew, right? I would hear him and I would understand. And he was sort of unafraid I don't think he was afraid of criticism. He was not thin-skinned. Like he just wanted to be understood. So you can go ahead and criticize him, but don't do it if you don't know what the hell's going on. And
so how does the relationship grow?
Yeah, it grows like over the course of that. And then as he got older, I think I was very inside the Lakers for a while. The Jim Jeannie thing, when they would hire, Mike Brown or D'Antoni.
You were an authority.
Yeah. I was very in the inner circle and I knew a lot. And so he and I would talk a lot just about what was going on all the time. And that's helped me as a reporter. But I think like, I think it was maybe like I felt like he was the fact that the best player in the league brought me into the circle of trust and confided stuff in me and told me what was happening from his perspective. And it's not like he just got a free pass. Like he was not afraid of, I'm telling you, he was not afraid of criticism. I wrote plenty of stuff about him that was not reverential, but he just wanted to be understood. And so the fact that I had those kind of dialogues with him and all the time, like I think that's why we got to be so close. And then, of course, the last couple of years, the team sucked. And he was dealing with his own injuries. And we didn't really do a lot of like exclusive interviews. We just talked a lot. Like I think we mostly emailed. Like he used to email like it wasn't even like you just emailed like you texted. And it wasn't just one line. He was always like expansive and interesting and whatever it was. And so I just think we talked a lot. Like I just felt like I was talking to like he knew that I was an athlete. He knew that I was a really good writer. At one point he goes, "Hey, what do you think of the stories I've been doing for the Players Tribune?" I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "No, like what do you think?" I go, "Yeah, I think they're good." I gave him like a nice hint. And he goes, "No, I really want to know what you think. Like get the red pen out and give me some notes." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Craving coaching, craving criticism. The athletes are so much more confident than the writers, though. Like they don't mind. Like everybody,
no, they don't mind.
I've told this story before, but the athletes who go onto the ESPN campus and then just see the way that insecurities consume the vanities of television, they're like, how do these people? How are these people not tougher? How are they not? Why? How has this not been exterminated from this competitive environment?
Oh my God! And it's like I used to play that. I used to be more involved in the political game. I don't think I ever played the game, but I was aware of what was happening, and I was more in it, and I would talk about it. And you'd see the alliances and the insecurities and the politics of all of it. And then I just realized like none of that shit matters. Like you think it matters, but it really doesn't. It really truly is about the work. Like it really is just the bottom line. Are you producing good stories that people want to read, that cut through? Are you a personality that resonates on TV and radio? And the best thing I try to do now is just be myself. Don't rock the boats. Just do the work.
It's the easiest thing to remember, being yourself. The end, though, you've taken us from the beginning to the end.
Okay,
now he passes away in a helicopter crash. The world is affected by the idea of somebody who was a symbol for youth dying, that being that final, that quick, that way, and everyone does a little bit assessing of mortality, I think. Anyone who had any sort of connection to that, because you're not thinking that thing would be happening to him.
So I live about 20 minutes from where the crash was. I live in the valley, and the crash was out in Agoura. I knew exactly where it was. And I had just gotten back from Miami. I was doing a story on like Duncan Robinson, I think. I had flown out there for the weekend. I had literally just been talking to Spo about Kobe, and we'd been doing and I landed the night before. So I was kind of, like tired from my trip. And it was like a Saturday, I think. I feel like it was a Saturday.
It was the weekend.
Yeah, it was the weekend. And my nanny was over in the morning because I was like, I need some help in the morning. I'm going to be tired, like that. And so she came over in the morning and she got the alert on her phone. And she was like, her face was white, and just like, oh my God, this. And she's like, is this true? And I was like, I don't know. Like, and it was, you're all shaky and spinning and screaming and upset. And, but then I kind of went into this like, well, my job, I guess now is to call this sheriff and confirm this. And all the people I would think of to call to confirm it, like I was afraid they were on the helicopter. Like I would call people and be like, he had a manager named Molly Carter. I called the security guard. He had 2 or 3 security guards that I had their numbers. Like I called them. I'm like, shit, they might have been on the plane too. Like shit. Oh my God. I hope you're alive to hear this message. Like I mean, that is a grisly task. I called the sheriff's department. They were not helpful. And then I called. We had a news editor. Her name was Alita Whithoff, and she's not there anymore. I don't even know Alita. She was great.
I don't.
She's like just like everything you want in a news editor, right? Like, and she's finally retired, but she was great. She was on the desk that day, thank God, because we needed somebody really good on the desk that day. Don't publish some only publish what don't guess. And I just said to her, I go, listen, I made all the calls you would make, but I think the best thing I can do is just drive out there. Because I'm just 20 minutes from here. And she's like, okay, here's what they're saying is the address. And I got in the car and drove. And I think I did some radio interviews on their drive out there. Like I remember talking to Michael Eaves at some point, and I was like shaky and crazy, and we still didn't know if this was real. But I think like a lot of people saw me on TV that day because I was at the crash site, and I think I probably looked horrible. Like I didn't put any makeup on. I just hopped out of the shower and just went, you know. I maybe had a professional outfit on. I don't know. I don't even remember.
What are you doing here? Are you new? Are you in work mode,
Yeah.
or you're
Both.
curious because something horrible has happened to someone? If you don't consider him a friend, it's certainly
No, he
someone
was a
you
friend
admire.
at that point. No, at that point he'd retired, and we were friends. I mean, he would talk to me. We talked about our kids. Like we talked and texted all the time. Even at we talked more after he retired than we did when he played.
Okay, so you're panicked.
Yeah.
You're
It's
not
like getting a phone call about, a friend of yours. Like it's and it's like, oh my God. Like but I also had this thing where I felt like Kobe let me in. Like he let himself be known by me, or at least he tried. And it is now my job to tell the world about him. Like that was an honor that he allowed me. He did not allow everybody that close. I mean, I think he talked to a lot of people, but especially towards the end of his career, and especially after he had retired, like I think I was one of the closest people to him in terms of on this side of the media desk. I'm sure he had other friends and stuff, but I feel like the best way that you can honor your somebody you consider a friend at that point is to tell their story. I mean, that's what he was. He was a storyteller. He loved making his own mythology. Like a lot of his commercials, he wrote his own commercials. Like he thought, and we talked about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and we talked about Achilles, and I had this Achilles. Would you rather burn brightly and die young, or would you rather live old a long time and have no one know your name? I mean, and the Achilles, like, that's what took him out as a player. Like, and there was just this, like, he went out like a freaking Achilles, right? Like, you burn brightly and die young, and everybody knows you, and he was larger than life, and then he was even larger in death. And so on the one hand, I'm personally really sad because this was somebody who was undeniably great, who thought I was undeniably great. And it gave me a lot of confidence in myself as a writer and a person and a reporter, that he saw eye to eye with me, that I was like a worthy person to speak to.
Worthy of his trust.
Yeah.
Somebody who would have a lot of reason to be guarded. Like that is a treasure. The trust that someone like that gives you, if you're a reporter, is a treasure. Well, it's the ultimate validation of what it is you do. If someone who would have a lot of reason to be distrustful would trust you. And
that last story I did with him when he was his last year, I mean, I said, listen, I'm not interested in writing any more hagiography. I don't want to kiss your ass. Everybody else is kissing your ass. Like, there's no reason for you to do one more of those. Let's do a story about what it really took to be you and all the yuck, all of the shit. Like, let's talk about your dad. Let's talk about whatever you can say legally about Colorado. Let's talk about Phil calling you uncoachable. Let's talk about the loneliness. Let's talk about what it was like growing up in Pennsylvania when you were raised in Italy and you didn't fit in anywhere. Like, let's get into that, and he was like, yeah. Let's do that.
We'll leave this subject in a second, but the thing that I wanted you to share with the audience, because you're such an exceptional reporter, is, and you've given us 1,000 details already, just small details about who he was.
Yeah.
When you think of the most fascinating of the details, are there any that you have not yet given us? Because you unspooled about 9 of them there.
Yeah.
And
I like the Moonlight Sonata with the finger. That was a good one.
You have a library of them, though, in terms of interesting details about him. And the story you're talking about, the last one, had a ton of details about how he handled retirement in a way that was super unusual and aggressive.
I've actually thought about him a lot since my dad passed, to be honest. Like, do you know what Kobe did the night after his last game? He went to church. Like the 60-point game where he scored 60 points on 50 shots. 50 fucking shots. I know,
it's
absurd,
crazy. Yes, it is.
And like everybody laughs at that. Like I laugh at that. And he's like, I had no choice. They kept making me shoot. And I was like, yeah, okay, bro. Okay, man. Like, you know what you fucking do. And he was exhausted by the end of it. But it was so Kobe, okay? And then even down to the, his speech, like he knew he was going to do the speech and he knew he was going to be whatever. And then he was like, and he drops the mic and he goes, Mamba out. Okay. It's amazing. It's amazing to do that. but it's also calculated. He had Mamba Out shirts ready to go on his website. I mean, like, come on, man.
Right? Yes.
Like you're just like, he's an amazing, like, because he had studied storytelling and he understood how to make a myth out of your life and become a mythological creature. He had done all that. He was really good at it. So like I think he liked me because I would call him on his bullshit. I'd be like, come on. This team sucks. Like the Kobe I know would hate this. Like you are not the Black Mamba if you think it's fun to win 17 games. Fuck that. Excuse my friends. I find myself cursing a lot when I talk like Kobe. He like, there's no way you're okay with this. And then he'd go, it's a beautiful journey. And then I'm like, I don't buy any of this for a second. I think this is you reading Joseph Campbell and you're talking yourself into this. Okay. But that's fine. But the truth is that he had already retired a long time when his body broke, when he had the Achilles and he started going down that. He saw what happened to Michael and he said, that is not going to be me. And he had pivoted. He had already pivoted into this whole, like he was writing those children's stories. He goes, I've been thinking a lot about Walt. And I'm like, as in Disney? And I'm like, right? Like, and I remember that night, I had that story written. And we were just going to run it like a few days later, like once everything had died down, and we'd just be like, we'll do our own mic drop story after everyone else has had their turn. And Raina, and I didn't like it at first, but Raina was like, no, listen, like legends go last. And I was like, oh man, that's a heavy thing to say, but thank you. That's really flattering, but okay. How are we not sure that people are going to be so sick of this stuff they don't want to read one more? And she's like, they will.
But you like pressure, you say. You like pressure.
So the pressure was on me. And I was nuts writing that story. Like I texted him and I go, hey, I need inspiration. What songs do you listen to when you're doing your crazy blackout workouts? And he would tell me he gave me a list and he was like, I listened to Tribe and I listened to Sia and I listened to the Transylvanian Orchestra, and I listened to Mozart and I just downloaded all that shit and I was like into it, And I would go to a hotel and I would just write I used to like rent hotel rooms and write all night for like 3 days straight. This is definitely before I had kids, but like.
Same, by the way, not the renting of hotel rooms, but I know what it's like. The cocoon is
you need a cocoon. I need to block it out. And I can't do it during the day because people are calling me and things are happening, but at night it's quiet. And so I was just like, days and days would go by and I would do draft after draft. And he liked that. I go, you are this story is kicking my ass. And he's like, and I was like, but I am going to get this right. Like I'm going to push. And he wrote back like in all caps, like uncompromising. And I'm like, God, you're so like crazy, like I love how crazy you are.
Both of you are crazy.
crazy. I can only do that for a little bit.
Well, most people can. I mean, otherwise everybody would be Kobe if they could do it intensely.
He did this every day for 20 years.
Right, correct.
Like I did this and then I was like, I need a minute. I'm going to go to Hawaii, like what the hell?
You visited the space, but you don't want to live there.
I went there for a little bit and it was nuts. Okay. But I'm glad I went there a little bit, and I think he got.
Well, he welcomed you. It sounds like look, come stand next to this. So
this is what it's really like. And then I remember he flew home that night on his helicopter after the game, and I realized then I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to redo this whole story. Like we were done, and I was just gonna add a little bit from just a coda, and then I'm like, no. He scored 60. The whole story was about how bullshit this farewell tour was. And I was feeling so brave that I was writing this and calling my friend bullshit. Like I'm calling him like this is bullshit, and then I was like, oh, it wasn't. Oh, he'd already pivoted. He was off with Walt Disney and they did the 60 points and and then I was like, that was a mind fuck. And then I called my editor and I was like, we have to redo this. And she's like, you have to talk to him. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's an easy get. Sure. Hey, Kobe, you're retired now. Can you call me tomorrow? Like,
right.
But he did. I was like, you just fucked up my story, man. You need to call me. I have to redo it. And he, whatever it was. And he actually called me that day. He was like, okay, I'll call you in a little bit. I'm doing a few things, but when I'm coming back from the office. And then we talked again. And then that's how I retopped the whole story. But it was like, it was really interesting to go through that and to be in that world for just a little bit. But I love the like playlist, right? Like I listened to Sia.
No, it was a good playlist. That was like the third most unusual choice that you listed there. You had
the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Okay, Tribe Called Quest. Okay, I mean all these make sense, but whoa, and like, but you know, like I think he was just like they was just a force of nature, and so covering it when he died, but I got mythological about it. I was like, he's Achilles. Like, and I just said, the best thing that I can do, the best way I can be strong now is to not fall apart. And, you know, this is the most unbelievably sad story, not just because he died, but because of all those little kids on the plane, the girls on the, his daughter and those other girls. I mean, that's just the worst story I ever had to go out and do. Like, especially because we didn't know all the girls were on the plane at first. We just thought it was him. And then, but like the thing that you have to do in those moments is like, be like, my job now is to tell the world everything I know. And this is what people want to hear. And this is what people need to do. And so I am going to do that. And I felt like it was my job, but I also felt like it was a privilege. Like I got to know him. I actually know him. Like a lot of times people die and like Bill Walton died recently. I don't have any good Bill Walton stories. I felt bad about it. I really like Bill Walton. I know him a little bit, but I wasn't lucky enough to have a great story, you know? And I'm not going to fake it, right? Like I watched him for years. I know his son. I know him, but I don't have any great, amazing stories like everybody else does. And so like, it's a privilege that I have great Kobe stories and I can give you those details, right? And I can tell that. And I think we're like, none of us get out of this alive.
Well, you just said that you've thought a lot about Kobe recently because of what you've been going through with your father.
Yeah.
What is happening there? What are you doing with those two things?
I think it's more like the day after his last game, like when I would have felt like all of the air rush out of the room and what is my life now and existential crisis time. That dude got up at 7:30 in the morning after he went to bed at 3:30 and whatever, and he went to church, and then he went to the office, and then he worked on whatever was next. And it wasn't as big or as exciting as like what he had done the night before, but it's like, you know, chop wood, carry water, like whatever you want to say, like this sort of keep the routine and stay strong. Because whatever emotions you're going to feel them. Like whether you're doing it while you're hanging out with a friend or while you're working out, like it's going to hit you at some point. I'm not just escaping them. There's a sort of devotion to craft and a devotion to routine and to being great and just maintaining a level of greatness like that. I don't know. I admired how he did that. And then I remember after when he passed, I was like, this is now my job to do this. Like, I knew that very strongly, you know? I think right now I'm actually feeling I'm kind of okay about my dad because I have things to do, right? I have things that I have to do. It is my job now to do this. But like, I'm sure this summer later on, I'll be like things will quiet down and I will be in a quiet space by myself and I'll fall apart. But like chop wood, carry water, get up, go for a walk, you know? Go on.
The responsibility and the duty that I felt after my brother passed, there's an initial stun, and you go and do the things but it's camouflaged.
Yeah.
Like it's not distraction,
like you're just
but
walking through it. Like you're not feeling all the high. I didn't, you know, going to the premiere should have been this crowning moment of my life or whatever, but it's so numb and bittersweet, and I'm not feeling all that accomplishment. Like I sort of, kind of in a way. You know, I got a little build up. It was fun for a while. It was texting me pictures of the billboards, you know, texting me pictures of, you know, the show happening and the build up to that. And then the last couple of weeks, obviously things weren't well with my dad. And it felt, I couldn't get excited about that. Like but I just show up, just do it, just walk through it.
Did you feel him there at all?
Oh, yeah.
Because I have felt in moments of inspiration or and I haven't had many of them because I've said a couple of times here that I've lost enthusiasm for things in general in a way that hurts. But I have, I've felt him around things that feel good.
Yeah.
And
I know what you're talking about at the loss of enthusiasm. Like everything feels duller.
Well, you're coming off of a real career achievement, right? It's not just your name and lights. Your work on a project that was deeply personal to you, that you were an authority on, Hollywood has turned into a dramatic story that you're executive
and also,
producing.
like, I made that shit happen. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I think I'm most proud of. Like people have ideas all the time and they say they're going to do it, but like I put the work in and I figured out how to make it happen from soup to nuts. And like, you know what that's like because you've built a company and you've done your, like, you know, I was getting upset about like some little review here or there, and I know people are going to be like, oh, the players don't look like them, or, you know, whatever. I don't care whatever people are going to say. But there's a part of me that's like, but you didn't do all of this. Like, you didn't do everything that it took to do this. Like, it's not like I just wrote a story and someone optioned my script and I came up and showed up at the premiere. Like, you know, you're deeply involved every step of the way.
Years,
you know, and not just the work, but like the vision. Right. And so
you were proud of yourself.
Yeah, I was proud of myself.
And you know he would have been proud of you.
100%.
You know he was proud of you.
Yeah, you asked me all the time about it. And like, I also feel like with my dad, like, my dad was really good at getting through hard things. Like, he had health stuff his whole life. Like, he had a AFib and kidney stones. And we almost lost him 30 years ago. He had a blood clot where he was in the hospital that went into his lungs. And you know, just like he was a guy, like he was born into sort of a poor family. He was one of 5 kids, like very similar background to yours. And, you know, his dad was a asbestos miner, and my grandmother worked in a little convenience store, and she was a bartender. She was all, you know, very like salt of the earth. Like, most of my family, like on his side, lives in these dusty mining towns in New Mexico or Arizona, or what. He went to Bakersfield High or South High. And, you know, he was the one out of 5 that went to college, and he went to UCLA and put himself through working at Westward Home Market and sleeping in his car and whatever. And like, so like he just got through stuff. Like, he went through poverty as a kid, and he made himself into a teacher, and then he made himself into my coach and my dad. And like, he was always like, I always thought he sort of saw the world through my eyes. Like, I got to do a lot of the things that he wasn't able to do. And so like, yeah, make me cry now. But like I felt like, I know he was proud of me. I know he loved me. Like, I felt like it's, as we say, like, you know, like, you can feel sad about it, but you also can feel really, really grateful I had him as long as I did. Right? You probably feel like that too, right? Like, you know, people will go, oh, maybe it's a little weird you're so close to your parents or something. I think they're jealous. You know? They should be, right?
The last 6 months, for you and I, right? Because I'm by a deathbed as well.
Oh, yeah.
It is somehow simultaneously, and I'm really a bit embarrassed by how often I am crying on this show about this stuff, but it is the strangest thing to tell people about grief because. Kobe Bryant dies suddenly, and that's a terrible way to lose somebody because you don't get to say all the things.
Right,
but as horrible as the last 6 months are, and I wouldn't wish watching that deterioration on anybody, I am so grateful for the blessing of being able to learn whatever I learned in those 6 months. I don't know what you feel like you have learned.
Like, he was so stoic. I mean, like, you know, 6 months of barfing your guts out on chemo, like...
But Ramona,
losing 50 pounds,
pancreatic cancer is the worst.
The worst.
It's the worst of them. It's the most aggressive of them.
I know, and it's like, and sort of like, you can see they're afraid, and you can see how sad they are. And like, I think for my dad, it was more about pride. Like, he had always been strong. Like, he had always had like strong legs, and he was a gardener, and he was climbing his hill, and he could always and so like, that was really hard for him not to be able to like stand up and walk like he wanted to, you know, like that, like watching somebody go through, like, I think like as a man, that was hard. And not to be like, to need help from a caregiver, or to like, can you help me up? Like, oh, that was like, must have crushed him, you know? But I just tried to be like, let's not make a big thing about this. I know you're proud, and I'm not going to make a big deal about it. You know, like, I'm going to give you your dignity as much as I possibly can, because that's what I would want. You know, like when I'm laid up, or if I had a couple C-sections, so I'm in the hospital a couple of days. I'm like a caged animal in the hospital. Get me out of here. I don't want to be here. I want to be home. I don't like being, same thing I told you with my back, like, to not be able to do stuff is very humbling. And so, like, I just liked anybody who would, like, be kind to me, but also give me my dignity.
You mentioned a couple of things that are a bit, I'm not going to say triggering for me, but I'm trying to keep it down because my brother needed help going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I try to sit around the corner. But when you mentioned seeing your father afraid.
Yeah. He called me in a couple times, and he was like, he wouldn't get out of bed, and he was just like, I just need a little pep talk. I don't know why I'm so weak. And he just cried a couple times. Whew, that was a hard one. But I just, you know what? I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't do that.
No, neither did I.
No, I was like, no, you're going to, like, here's your pep talk. And I would just give him that pep talk. And I just kept myself from really, like, I said, this is more for you than for me, I'm going to go fall apart later, but I'm going to give this to you, where this is what you need. I'm not the one laying there.
The thing, it just made me feel so helpless. Yeah. Seeing the fear on him, it's my little brother.
Yeah.
Wanting to remove it.
Yeah.
And I got nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not solace.
Yeah.
I'm not company. Like, you're just afraid and I can't do anything.
Yeah. You were there though.
Yeah.
Like you say you're not doing anything, but you were there. That's what you can do.
But I can't help. I can't help with the fear.
Yeah.
You know?
You can tell them they're not going to be alone. And I think that's all we can ask at the end, right? That you don't suffer and that you're not alone.
I don't know what words to give, right? Because I have I can't say what the lessons are. I'm still raw. I hope that it somehow starts to feel better for you. It just seems too soon for any of that to be. Like, I don't know what the next little bit is going to be for you, but I appreciate you sharing it with us here. And I appreciate you coming and doing any of it during this time, because I said no to other things, right? Yeah. I said no to other things, but I was like, no, we'll do Dan's show. Let's do Dan's show. It'll feel good. We'll go to West Hollywood. I didn't know you were going to be here. I thought you'd be Ramon. So I was happy when I saw you outside. Well, I am happy to see you too, and I thank you both for the vulnerability. And we should tell people that the work that you're proud of is something that people should check out, because it's well outside of what I'm guessing you would have imagined at any point in your career being able to do. Like, I don't know how it is that you were able to pull all of that off, to be able to turn this story of a lifetime into a dramatic achievement for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So thank you for being with us. And I would suggest to the folks that they watch Clipped on Hulu, look at us, blubbering messes at the end. We got to get out of here.
How's my eye makeup? Am I good?
How's mine? How's my eye makeup? Good? Yeah. At some point, this is going to stop. I'm going to stop doing this. They didn't bring the tissues out
You're like
west.
Roy Firestone over here.
I'm going to have to fire somebody for not bringing the tissues. Thank you again, Ramona. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.